you are watching this, then you have already read Fourth Wing, Iron Flame, Onyx Storm. If you have not read those 3 books and you come at me and say you spoiled it for me, that's on you. I just got her down to go for a nap, so I think we have maybe an hour. I may have to come back and finish this. She doesn't nap as long as she used to. She's now taken shorter naps more times throughout the day. If you're a mom, you know what I'm saying. I did read Onyx Storm. Now, I read Onyx Storm. A lot of you are going to be like, why do you keep reading the Fourth Wing series? You don't like the Fourth Wing series. Just don't read the Fourth Wing series. You don't have to read it. I read it because 2 of my friends were reading it and I wanted to be able to participate in the conversation since I am incredibly close to them and I knew this is what they were going to talk about. So I read it for that reason. I had some good times, I had a lot of bad times, and I had some mediocre times, and I was very confused as to what it is about Fourth Wing that I am just not meshing with. What it was about this series as a whole that I was having such a huge problem with, and I think I have figured it out, so I will get to that in a minute. If you haven't subscribed, if you haven't left a like and commented and all of that good stuff, I encourage you to do it now because this is going to upset a lot of people, be okay with some people, and a lot of people are just not going to care and not click on the video anyways, so that's all right with me. But I did want to talk about this. Like, I just feel like this is one of those books that are just so, like, many people are talking about it. Not just this book, but the series in general. I feel like so many people are talking about it. And so, of course, I also want to talk about it. I love to gab. I'm all about the gab. I think we need to start with world building. So if we can start with world building, I think we can like move up from there. The world building in the Empyrean series in general is pretty boring. There's enough to get you a generalized idea, but I bet you if you described the world as it was written, if you described the world to someone who does those like, did you see the perp? Do you know what they look like? We're going to get a sketch artist to you. If you described it to them, they would probably make the most basic, generic world that they can think of because there's just not a lot to it. Like, there's mountains, there's oceans, there's islands. There's this one island that has like basically no color whatsoever. And then there's another island that has like a ton of color. But like, it's not very detailed, if that makes sense. Like, I couldn't tell you what different people were wearing besides probably a leather jacket. But I mean, honestly, in my head, and correct me if I'm wrong, in my head, every single person is wearing a leather jacket and black skinny jeans. I imagine Imogen probably has some tears in her jeans because she just seems like that type of a person. But other than that, everybody else, black leather jacket, black skinny jeans, like cigarette jeans, not even skinny jeans, like the cigarette jeans. You know what I'm talking about? This is like early 2000s, 90s type of term. So like if you remember the cigarette jean, like bring those back. Bring those back. Black leather jacket, cigarette jeans, black, obviously. And probably like some silver spiking somewhere. Like either like silver spikes on their shoulder pads or like I imagine like some jewelry, but it looks so generically like there's no further detail. Like there's no information. Maybe I skipped it. I don't know, but there's just no information to tell people apart. I just couldn't describe anything beyond that, including where we are. Like I couldn't distinguish. If you showed me a picture and said one of these is Aricia and the other one is Basquiat, I don't, gun to my head, I have no idea. Please don't ask me that question again. Like, I couldn't tell you. I just couldn't tell you. The world building is not there. But I have to be honest, most people who are reading this book are not reading it for the world building, if you don't know what I mean. A lot of us that are reading Fourth Wing, now I can't speak to everyone, but I can speak to my friend group. A lot of us are coming from the generation of reading Harry Potter when it came out, reading Twilight when it came out, reading Hunger Games and Divergent when it came out. So we were literally there in line reading these books as children, as the intended audience, I remember those books coming out. I remember devouring them and just like so excited for the next one, you know, the selection. There is another one that I can't think of right off the top of my head, but you know what I'm talking about. So it's that generation going into adulthood wanting to read similar YA books that we were raised with, but more adult, if that makes sense. And so I feel as though the world building in those books compared to the world building in this book pretty equaled out, because again, as a teenager, I really wasn't focusing on the world building. I was more so focusing on the romance, who was Bella going to end up with. Like, that was my main concerns. So I recognize that this is a romance book with a fantasy subplot, making it a romantasy book. So I recognize that. I think it's fair for everyone to recognize that. This is not something that we're going to put on an English 101, you must read this book before you die type of thing. Like, this is not going on there right underneath Picture of Dorian Gray. It's not going on there, okay? But I just want to say, you could have put a little bit of world building. You could have put a little bit of it, you know, just a smidge of it. There's a point in this book where they are at a temple, and there was not a line, not a sentence to describe what this temple looked like, what it was doing, like nothing. There was no information. I don't know what a temple looks like, okay? I imagine Hercules, when he goes to go see Zeus in that like beginning scene where he finds out that he doesn't belong to his parents. And so he goes into the temple of Zeus.
You've done wonderfully. You really have, my boy.
That's what I'm thinking of. I'm literally thinking of this like huge statue of an old guy with a really long beard with the perfect curl. I'm imagining that in some columns. Like, that's what's going on in my head. There's nothing else to describe it. Just, they went into a temple. Okay, well, I've watched Hercules 1 or 2 times, so that's what I'm thinking of. I feel as though we could have had a little bit more world building. I think that bothered me as somebody who does enjoy fantasy. I think that bothered me. And I think that's why I really, truly love epic fantasies, because we get that world building in there. I think from here, I want to talk about not just the world building, but the character setup. In this book, this is the 3rd book of the series. Okay, I think that's important to remember. This is the 3rd book of the series. And from the 1st book to the 3rd book, there should be a significant character arc. The characters should not be in the same place as they were in book 1. Okay? So if the characters should not be in the same place that they were in book 1, you would assume that most of them have matured or significantly immatured. But no one should be the same. And yet, all of them are identical to book 1. Everyone is still in the same place as they were in book 1. Now, locations may have changed, relationship statuses may have changed, but overall, I think the only person that had any type of a character arc, and it really wasn't an arc, it was more of a hump, is Rydick. I would say Rydick is the only one that had any bit of a character development, and I was very excited to see his character development. I liked that he went from the guy that we looked for in the serious moments to kind of make light of things, to make it more hilarious. Not hilarious, but like more humorous than the seriousness of the matter. We like joking about our trauma, okay? So we like Rydick because he was able to give us that joke, that jab in there. So we all appreciate Rydick. And I really liked that in book 3, he was like, I'm not just here for your comedic entertainment. I'm not just here to be the funny friend of the series, I also have substance to myself. I also can do things just as well as you can do them. I'm also as strong and as smart as everyone else in this group. And I did really appreciate him in general, because he still kept that humor that he brings to the table, but he brought more than that. He brought substance to a conversation. He included things in a conversation that needed to either be realized or talked through or whatever. So he helped a lot of characters, a lot of situations. Just overall, the book in general, I feel like Rydick did such an amazing job of his character arc. And that is the only person that I enjoyed in this book, okay? The only person. I think that Violet, if Violet was a guy, she would be court-martialed for harassment. There is no two ways around it, okay? This girl, the way she kept pressuring Xaden repeatedly, she was just pressuring him over and over. And I was like, girl, he said no. Like, he said no. Respect that. Move on. He said no. Like, what are you doing? You know, it was too much. It was too much for me. I don't understand why we're treating Violet the way we're treating her in general, because this girl has already gone through 2 books proving herself. Why are we continuing to prove ourselves? I feel like by book 3, she should be thought of as an asset. She should not be thought of as some belligerent child that we're just kind of like placating, which is something that you see in other series. For instance, Percy Jackson. I am now on book 4 of Percy Jackson, and books 1, of course, people were like, hey, I don't think you're going to be able to do anything in book 1. And then book 2, he proves himself again. And book 3, guess what? In book 3, people are starting to take him very seriously. And older people in authority, are looking to Percy being like, hey, this is on you. So I'm betting on you. You're my horse, okay? You're the one that I'm relying on to take care of this scandal, okay? I'm relying on you. You little 7th grader. You got to save the whole world, okay? Figure it out. And so I just feel like by book 3, people, at least some people, and I'm not talking about like people in her inner circle, I'm talking about like people that were in opposition of her, some of them should be looking at her and being like, you know what, I think I had you all wrong. I think actually you might be a great asset, and that we should be taking you a little bit more seriously than we actually are. I think in my personal experience, as the wisdom of the years have gone by, I think I can look at you and say, yes, you are someone who has something to say that maybe we should listen to. I'm not saying every single person, but I am saying some people should have at some point been like, you know what? You know who might have an answer or two? That Violet chick. I think Purple might have gotten it. I think maybe let's go with the Lightning. You know what I mean? I feel like by book 3, we should have more allies than we have opposition. Of course, we need to have that conflict, but there's too many. There's too many people against her. So many people that were against her from book 1 all the way to book 3, still against her. And I'm just like, bro, unless like there's a point to this, I just feel like she should have somebody on her side that is of relevance. I'm not saying like, because of course she has people on her side. She has Rydick, she has Rhee, she has Dane, she has Xaden, she has, I can't think of the rest of the people, but she has them on her side. I'm saying people of the council should not be looking down their nose at her every single time. She should have been more so included into the council meetings and giving her 2 cents, because she's the one that's like dealing with it all. We're getting her perspective. So unless there's other perspectives of other characters that we're just not getting, and they actually are more so getting all this intel and know how to end this war or whatever, I feel like Violet should probably be included. I'm just throwing it out there. Speaking of Violet, I don't like Violet anytime Xaden's on the page. Can't stand Violet as soon as Xaden gets on that page. Xaden's not on the page, I think Violet's a pretty badass girl, you know? Like, I think she's pretty cool. I think she can hold her own. I think Violet is very strong. Second Xaden's on that page, I think Violet is the most insecure person in the page. In the whole book. I do not like them together. They are so, like, needy for each other, and it's driving me crazy because, like, it doesn't feel like I want you, but I can't have you. It feels like I want you and you're being stubborn and I'm not mature enough to give you the space that you're asking for. And so I'm just going to continuously beg for you to sleep in my bed. What are we doing? It's 2025. What are we doing here? They sound like teenagers. They do not sound like they're in their 20s. They do sound like very hormonal teenagers. So I don't know. I really don't know. I feel like that scene where Harry Potter and Cho finally go out after Cedric's passed, and Harry has wanted to be with Cho like this whole series. Then he finally gets her, and it's like a train wreck, and he's just kind of like realizing like, gosh, this is awful. It's so frustrating. It's just so frustrating. I don't like them together. I just don't. It reminds me of Bella when she was going through her November, December stage.
There's a possibility. There's a possibility.
Please, please. I need you to move forward. All the other characters I have no problems with, except for the fact that none of them existed off the page. Like, those characters, once they were not on the page, nothing for them existed. They didn't progress, they didn't regress. They stayed in the same spot as to when we left them last. So when we last left Rhee at Basquiat, when we leave, she's not on the page, she doesn't exist. She's not a character anymore. We get back to Basquiat. Rhea is exactly where we left her. Exactly where we left her. She's doing the exact same thing. She's doing the same problem working. She's talking about the same issue that she had when they left. Like, nothing has progressed. Sawyer is still not able to do this. Sawyer's not able to do that. She's not able to do this. Blah, 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 blah. She's having the same problems. She didn't work through anything. Like, there was no, not even an inch given of progress. So that is something that I struggled with, because I feel like if somebody's going to be gone for 3 weeks and they come back, there should be 3 weeks worth of difference going on, you know? Whether it is a simplicity of a haircut, maybe she comes home and she's like, oh, your hair's shorter. And Rhee's like, oh yeah, I got my hair cut. You know, like, oh, I caught it, you know, after you left. So yeah, it's shorter. Or your hair's longer. Yeah, I let my hair grow out. Like, even if it's like something so small as that, or just as simple, like, you've been doing your makeup differently. Yeah, I figured out this new technique. Whatever it is, there should be something that's changed. It's been 3 weeks. My life is not the same as it was 3 weeks ago. I can tell you many things that have changed in my life from 3 weeks ago. My daughter doesn't look like she looked 3 weeks ago. Like, so much has changed. She can hold her head up. Like, she's not the same person as she was 3 weeks ago, okay? Like, she's holding on to toys. She's able to bring the toy to her face. She is not the same. 3 weeks have passed. If somebody left my life for 3 weeks and came back, they would look at my kid and be like, wow, she's so different. Because that's what happens as time progresses. It did not happen for any of the characters in this book, though. None of the characters experienced 3 weeks worth of growth. And that was just disappointing. I wish there was better character setup. I wish there was better character management. You know, I just feel like she forgets the characters that she's not writing about. And if it's not Xaden and Violet, they don't really matter that much anyways. I feel like there were so many tragedies that happened to characters in this book. Couldn't name a single one of them. There were so many new characters introduced just to be killed off. And I felt like that was so pointless. I felt like that was just something to cause tragedy, to make the war real. But the war would have been more real if we got rid of someone of significance. Like, someone of huge significance. I continuously forgot who Sloane was. Continuously forgot. Continuously forgot about Auric. Continuously forgot about Bodhi. And I don't even know. Was Bodhi even in this one? Yeah, no. He was. For like a page or two. But like, very little significance. Very little significance. Didn't even know that someone had a crush on Garrick. Didn't even know that. Had no idea. I feel like it was all stupid. I just think that the characters fell so hard for me. I wanted more from these characters. I think that when you're reading it, it's a good time because of the writing style. But when you think back on like what you've gained, what new information you have, you can't take any of it into account because you get in new information and then you find out next page that all the information that you just learned is useless. So we're just going to move on. So what was this? Just a filler book? Like, I'm so confused by that. I want to step away from the character setup because I'm getting too mad about it. So why don't we instead talk about this plot line? Okay. The plot line in Onyx Storm. So Onyx Storm is about... I actually don't know what Onyx Storm is about. Could not tell you what the plot was. I can tell you what subplots were. I know that Xaden is Venom. We're looking for a cure for him. We're looking for a cure for him. There is another enemy, that chick. She is Violet's mom's shadow. Wait, how do I explain this? So like she's Violet's mom's opposite. She's okay, so got Violet. You've got Violet's mom. Violet's mom controls the weather. She's like the weather app. So can this girl, but she's the Venom version of Violet's mom. So she can also control the weather. Is that making sense? I hope that's making sense. I don't know. They're also looking for the 7th breed of dragons, and there's a generalized war going on. Also, they're all trying to graduate school. So there's that too. I think that's it. I honestly can't remember, like, too much of the plot line. I know they did a lot of traveling in this book. I think they really should have named this The Travel Diaries, but I mean, I guess not. Whatever. It is what it is. I personally did not think any of the plot lines were strong enough to justify nearly 600 pages. I just don't think that they were strong enough for that. That's my personal opinion. I feel like a lot of the plot points could have been wrapped up, could have been summed up in 100 pages, you know? I just don't understand. Not all of them. I understand the plot line of Xaden. I understand that one was going to take the whole book because she's very desperate. You can see that she's very desperate. She wasn't taking no for an answer. She got no the entire book and she wasn't going to accept that. So I understand that one was going to go carry on to the end. But the Andarna breed, like, of dragons, that felt like a waste because the dragons ended up coming to them and it was just like, okay, they go to find the dragon breeds. They ask them, hey, you're the 7th breed. You can fire up this ward stone and save us. And the dragons say, no, we're not doing that. we don't want to because we're a peaceful breed. And yes, my love. We're a peaceful breed and we don't believe in war. So we're not going to do that. And then the next chapter, they said, just kidding. Actually, we're going to go and do that anyways. I just don't get it. Like, I just don't get it. Then don't say the first part. Like, if you're going to do it anyways, then don't. You know what it felt like when I read that? It felt like Rebecca Yarros had an idea and then she wrote herself into a corner and was like, oh, no one can survive this if I do that. So I actually need those dragons to fire up the ward stone so that they all leave. It just felt like she wrote herself into a corner and had to figure out how to get herself out of it. Like, it didn't feel like it was planned or that it was momentous. Like, it didn't feel anything at all. It just felt not good. Most of this book felt not good. I don't understand it. I think one of my main problems with this book was that it just couldn't pick a lane. And we had romance as a plot, and we also had war as a plot. And it couldn't pick a side of what this book wanted to be about. Because on the one hand, we had all of these very, like, intense scenes with Xaden and Violet on a romance spectrum. And then randomly, there was all these politics and war and fighting and this, that, and the other. And it just was very confusing because it is one thing to just focus on the romance. I think something that Sarah J. Maas does really well is she doesn't really focus on the wars. Like, she doesn't really focus on the fighting in ACOTAR. She's very much focusing on the romance. In fact, it's a romance book. Like, it is a romance book. There's very little war part of it. If you read A Court of Silver Flames, that whole book, this much war. It was this much book and this much war. So she heavily focuses on the characters in those books. It is a character-driven book. Onyx Storm feels like it's trying to be plot-driven, but it's only using characters to push the plot forward. I don't know. It just kind of was a mess for me. I feel like the plots didn't make a lot of sense. I felt like there were way too many things that I was like, oh, well, why haven't you tried this yet? Like, literally, why have you not tried this yet? I'm going to say this. This is my personal opinion. And if you know the answer to it, go ahead and comment it down below. Why can't Sloane... Stay with me here. If Sloane is a conduit and she can take power from one thing and put it into another, why can't Sloane hold on to Xaden, take out his venom power, and put it back into the earth? Why can't that happen? Why have we not tried that? Why have we not thought of that? Because that was the first thing I thought of. When we found out what Sloane's power was, I was like, oh, okay, cool. She's the antidote. She's the antidote. She can do this. She's the antidote. I'm just saying, she's the antidote. Like, it doesn't make any sense. If she can do this, then why hasn't anyone been like, hey, you know what we haven't tried yet? You know what we should try? What we haven't tried, what we could try? Why does Dane have so much power? I really would like to know about that. I want to know why Dane has so much power. I want to know why we haven't tried Sloane as an answer. I want to know why there are so many loose ends, like plot holes throughout the book. Throughout the book, there were so many times where I was like, okay, this could have been wrapped up by just doing X, Y, Z. But instead we had to go the long way around it. Like, I don't get it. I don't understand Violet's chronic illness. I don't understand it because her chronic illness only happens when it's convenient for the storyline. Her chronic illness never seems to happen when it would be the most inconvenient time. For instance, her shoulders pop out quite often, but it never gets to the point where it's like so dislocated that she has to like figure out how to pop it back in. It's never gotten to that point. And there's been times where like, I'm going to butcher this dragon's name. I'm going to butcher it. But Tarn, I think I'm saying that right. Big T dog. There's been times when he's done maneuvers that she was like, I'm going to regret this in the morning. Why aren't you regretting it in that moment? Like, why are you okay with it in the moment? There's times where she slams down on her knees and she's like, I'm going to be so sore in the morning. Girl, why haven't your knees popped out? Because there's other times where she's just walking casually and all of a sudden, oh, my knee's dislocated. Like, I don't understand. Maybe it's because I don't have this chronic illness, and so maybe I just need to do more research. Maybe I'm being very ignorant around it. But why is it? Now, to be fair, I did not read these scenes. My friend in advance told me the pages that they would be on, so I was able to just completely skip those pages. When I got close to them, I would just skip the pages and then continue reading. But there was a point where I asked her, are you sure it's this from this page to this page? And she was like, yes. And I was like, are you positive? She goes, yes. I go, that's 11 pages. That's 11 pages. And she was like, yeah, it's a very long scene. "11 pages with a chronic illness?" Now, if you read those 11 pages, I need you to let me know. Was there at any point in time where she was like, hey, I'm exhausted. Let's take a break and watch a movie, eat some popcorn, and revisit this? Was there any point in time when she was like, I'm sore, I'm in pain, anything like that? Because I feel like 11 pages with a chronic illness, that's a lot. That's a lot of, I mean, unless they were just in one position the whole entire time, that's a lot. That's a lot. That's so much. Like, what are we doing here? I thought you had a chronic illness. Why are you doing all of this? Why aren't you dizzy? Why aren't you passing out? Why aren't you cramping? Like, again, granted, I did not read those pages, so maybe all of that stuff did happen. I just feel like for 11 pages, by page 4, Xaden should have been calling in a healer. Speaking of the smut, I just want to very quickly read something to you. The following text has been faithfully transcribed from Navarian into the modern language by Jacinia Neilward, curator of the Scribe Quadrant at Basquiath War College. All events are true and names have been preserved to honor the courage of those fallen. May their souls be commended to Malik. Okay, Jacinia translated this from Navarian, which means someone, either Xaden or Violet, wrote down in great detail 11 pages worth of their sex life for Jacinia to sit down and translate into the modern language. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't have friends that are like that, okay? I do not have that type of a relationship with my friends, okay? Not enough to go into 11 pages worth of details. I don't have that relationship. Maybe you do. Clearly, someone in this book does. I think the plot could have done really well if we had a real, true direction that we all agreed we were going towards. I just felt like this was all over the place. I felt very reminiscent of Iron Flame, where there was so many directions and it felt like a lot of them were red herrings and a lot of those directions didn't make sense and weren't brought up ever again. I feel the same with Onyx Storm. I feel like so many of these things that just happened are never going to be brought up ever again. They were completely pointless. It was a bunch of words wasted, and I don't know why we did that. Like, I really, truly don't understand why we did all of that. Entertainment-wise, this was pretty entertaining. I had a good time in certain moments, mainly the moments that Rydick was in. I really liked that after chapter 1, we were thrown into the story. I feel like that's something that Iron Flame didn't do. It took so long to get into the story of Iron Flame, like so long to get to the actual point. I feel like with Onyx Storm, chapter 1 ends, we're in. Like, we know what the plan is. We know what the goal is, except that changed by chapter 2, but whatever. It felt as if in chapter 1 we had our crap together. You know what I mean? Like, it felt like, okay, cool. We're into the story. Now, the story took a detour several times, but chapter 1, I think, was a solid chapter, and I was very excited for Onyx Storm after reading chapter 1. After reading chapter 1, I will be honest, I thought that I was going to like this book because I thought it was so much more different from Onyx Storm. Man, was I wrong, but here we are. I think entertainment-wise, Rydick really carried this book in the entertainment level of writing. Like, I just felt like he was the only thing that was worthwhile reading. He was the only thing that had anything of substance to listen to. I think the ending was entertaining, but I think that's where Rebecca Yarros really soars, is with her endings and leaving you in a place of like, okay, well, now I want to know what happens. I do think that Rebecca Yarros is good at ending her books. I also feel as though this whole series could have been one book. Like, I really truly believe Fourth Wing, Iron Flame, and Onyx Storm all could have just been one book. One 400-page read. I just don't think there was enough value to the books to justify a 5-book series. And I don't know about the other 2 books. Like, I don't know what's going to happen in those other 2 books. I don't know if I'm even going to read the other 2 books. All I do know is that this was rough. Like, so rough. There were so many times where I was just so bored reading this. There were times where I was like, okay, we've already seen this. This has already happened. Why are we doing it again? Like, it was the same. This person betrays this person. This person outsmarts this person. Violet is victorious. Like, it was the same thing over and over and over again. I was like, okay, let's get something new in here. Like, let's do something else. A person that I have no emotional ties to has passed away. I don't care. Like, I don't care about those people. I don't care that the person that was trying to make our main character feel like crap passed away. I don't care about those things because there's no emotional tie to me. I don't know who that person is, so I will not be going to the funeral. But so sorry for your loss. Like, I don't know what to tell you. It doesn't, there's no connection to me. I also think that because everybody dies in her books, I think that I also just don't have emotional attachments to any one character. I think unless something happened to Xaden or Violet that would take them out of the game, I think that would be the only way that I would feel something. Like if something happened to Andarna, which I thought was going to happen, and I was ready to be emotionally skewed. You know, like I thought something bad was going to happen to Andarna, and then nothing happened. And she was safe. And then I thought something bad was going to happen to T-Dog, Big T. I thought something was going to happen to him. Nothing happened. I also don't feel like I have so much of an emotional attachment to Xaden's dragon, who I'm not even going to try and say her name. But I don't feel like I have any emotional attachment to that dragon either, because once again, they don't exist unless she's on the page. I just want to say that emotionally, entertainment-wise, it just wasn't there. It just wasn't there for me, maybe for you. It was semi-entertaining. I think I would give it a 3 stars if it was just based on entertainment. Like, entertainment level, I would say 3 out of 5. I would say world building, I would give it a 1 out of 5. I would give character setup 2 out of 5 because of Rydick. I would give plotline 2 out of 5. And I would give entertainment 3 out of 5. I think that's where I would stand with those. And then we have the general writing technique. I feel like the reason why I am not meshing with this writing is because there are so many iconic lines that authors created out of thin air. Lines that we get so much emotion around. For instance, if I say to the right demographic, what letters, we immediately are like, oh, if I were to reference, didn't you get my letters? A different demographic are just like, oh my gosh. And if you don't know those references, I encourage you to read more. But I think that those are like primary examples of a simple line that just evokes so much emotion because of the amount of work led up to that line. Like the whole series gets written and you get that one line and it's an iconic line and it's stamped onto that series forever and ever. There are other lines that I can say that an entire fandom is going to recognize. For instance, if I were to say, where is my wife? We know who wrote that. We know where it's from. We know what to do with it, okay? We recognize it. It is deep in us. It's ingrained. It's in our DNA, in our coding. We're into it, okay? We know that line. We recognize that line. We know where that line is from, okay? That was an iconic line. Now, I'm not saying that no one can ever use the line, where is my wife, ever again. I'm not saying that. What I am saying, do you know what I mean? Like, do you know what I mean? It just feels like all the iconic moments in the entire Fourth Wing series, all of them are ripoffs from other creators, other authors. And I'm not saying that she took inspiration. I'm saying she took the direct line. Like she took that, scissored it out, cut, copy, paste. Like, I'm not saying that you cannot take inspiration. I understand that basically everything's been written and we're just kind of inspired by other creations of work. I understand that. Like, I get no one's creating the next Frankenstein. I get that. I really do. I really, really, truly do. But what I am saying is that I don't know who Rebecca Yarros is, because this is just an amalgamation of other people. Like, all of this is just I would not say this is an original piece of work. And anyone who is saying this is an original piece of work are not the people who I grew up with, because anyone in my age bracket, anyone who is in their 30s or higher, I'm in my mid 30s. I'm 35 years old, okay? I was born in 1989. And anyone who was raised the way I was raised and read what I read know that, and this is the other thing, like people are like, oh, well, Rebecca Yarros and I are probably the same. Let's find out. Hey Siri, how old is Rebecca Yarros? 43. Okay. Rebecca Yarros is 43 years old. You think she didn't read what I read? I guarantee you she did. You think she didn't know what I know?
Do not cite the deep magic to me, witch. I was there when it was written.
I guarantee you she does. This is an amalgamation of everyone I grew up with. Same as it's an amalgamation of everything Rebecca Yarros grew up with, okay? It is not an original piece of literature by any means, okay? You want something super original? I don't even like this book. I gave it a 2-star. I would say that this is super original though. I would say it's very original piece of work. I think the magic system is something I've never seen. And yeah, super controversial. Didn't like it at all, but original piece of work. This, not so much. Not so much at all. Everything has been done before. Everything has been reused. She's taking iconic moments from other people's work. I can point out every scene in Fourth Wing, in Iron Flame, in Onyx Storm. There was literally a line at one point in Fourth Wing. And this is when I was like, wow, this is so similar to all these other things. There is a line in Fourth Wing that is a direct word-by-word quote from Batman the Dark Knight. I just feel like there is a difference between inspiration and blatant plagiarism. There is a huge difference. And people who are like, oh, this is just inspiration. I can name other books. For instance, now I haven't read the book yet, but this is what I've been told. And this is how the author of that book marketed her book. And that would be Lauren Roberts' Powerless. Now, I know this is a very beloved series, but even Lauren Roberts says, if you like Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard, this is essentially the same thing. I don't want to read the book that I've already read. I don't want to reread something that I've already read in somebody else's voice. This felt like a fan fiction of all of my favorite stories. Like, it was just like a fan fiction of the early 2000s to 2010. I don't think that this needed to be this long. I think there was so much more she could have done with it. I think there was so much more. If you're going to carry on for 5 books, make it an epic fantasy. Make it an epic fantasy. Make it more. Make it more than this. And if you're going to do it for 5 books, you can't have this heavy of a romance. I'm sorry. It cannot be like this. Not unless you're going to go the Sarah J. Maas route, which I could definitely see she was trying to do in many times, but failed. If I could give her any advice, if I could give any advice to Rebecca Yarros, it would be to stop reading other people's work and to go out and live your life, have a good time, step away from social media, don't even go online, don't do anything. Be present, be in the moment, hang out with your family, hang out with your kids, and then one night, go to a log cabin and type up a manuscript. Because I feel like that's the only way she's going to have an original piece of work, an original literature. Because there were so many times in this where she had Rydick being like, remember how last book you and Xaden were like, isn't that so funny? Like, I didn't like that at all. I don't like you breaking the fourth wall. I don't like it. I don't want you to break the fourth wall. Don't do it again. Because that was weird. It was like dropped in. It was strange. I didn't like it. I felt uncomfortable. It felt so cringy. She is clearly reading our comments. She is clearly seeing the videos. Don't do that. Like, don't do that. Come up with it on your own. Do it by yourself. Don't be influenced by all of us. Like, just write a book, but don't write it for money. Like, that's how it also felt like. It just felt like this was a money grab. Like, Fourth Wing did so well, so instead of making it 3 books, we're going to make it 5 books. Don't do that. Don't do that. Because now you have suffered your art for that. I would say I would give the general writing technique a 1 star. There was no technique. Unfortunately, I don't think you can rate it anything because there was no technique. It was somebody else's technique. And I liked the other people's techniques, but I don't like the amalgamation of everyone else's techniques. After everything is said and done, adding everything up, if I took world building, 1 star. Character setup, 2 stars. Plotline, 2 stars. Entertainment, 3 stars. General writing technique, 1 star. That's 9 stars. 5 different categories. We've got 9 stars. Divide that by 5. That's a 1.8. So I'm going to say 1.75. 1.75 stars. I'm giving this book a 1.75 stars. I did not like it. Now, I recently saw an interview where Rebecca Yarros had said that this was originally supposed to be a trilogy, and then she felt like it wasn't going to get the whole story in, so she made it five books long instead. So I personally feel as though the last 2 books and the first book are the actual story. I think that I will probably read the 4th book because I think that will be back to the actual story. Now, I may be wrong. I may be kicking myself in the foot right now. Like, I don't know. But I just personally feel like if it was supposed to be a trilogy, I'm going to assume that the last 2 books are what she actually planned on writing instead of dragging it out the way that she did just for profit. So I probably will look into book 4. And if I do not like book 4, that will decide if I read book 5. But I don't know. Like, I feel like I want to say that I'm done with the series. I'm never going to read it again. I want to say that, but I also want to know if I'm correct in what I'm thinking of, like, book 4 is going to be the actual story of what she wanted to tell. So that's my prediction, is that book 4 is going to be amazing. That's my prediction. I think book 4 is going to be the book that everybody wanted after book 1. That may not be true. It may not be true. I don't know. It might not. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Stay tuned for that. I also know that she's taking off time, which I think is brilliant. Like, please do that. Do not write another book right now because please don't do that. So I'm glad that she's taking time off. I'm glad that she's going and hanging out and doing whatever she's doing. I'm so sorry. If you loved this book, I am so sorry. It was not for me. I don't think that anybody who does enjoy this book, I don't think anything less. Like, I think that once I'm like saying it, like, I think entertainment wise, it was entertaining, you know? And I think if you go into a book and you're not like me, like, I'm somebody who is looking at these things, right? Like, as somebody who critiques books and like reads them, not just for fun, but also to like gain something out of it. I feel like for me personally, I'm looking at it, and this is something that I used to do way before I even had YouTube. Okay, all of my friends used to have me read books because they wanted me to point out the parts that were flawed in the book. They thought that those were very interesting conversations, and it made them view the book differently. Even in my Discord server with my book club, the book club is free, by the way. The Discord server is free. Anyone can join. You don't have to pay for anything. But even in those, like, our first book club book, we had a conversation and a lot of people changed their initial rating after discussing it and being like, yeah, you're right. Like, there were this many issues and this was good and that was not so good. And you're right. I do want to know more about this. And I do like think about this and I think about that. And da, 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 da. That's just how I was raised, guys. That's just how I was raised. Okay. My mom raised me to do it this way. And so I don't know if it's good. I don't know if it's not. But if you want someone to discuss in depth about a book, I am your girl. Unless it is your favorite book and you don't want your feelings hurt. In which case, I am not your girl. So, yeah. I wanted to like it. I wanted to because my friends really like this series. But even they are struggling. And they are diehard Fourth Wing fans. And even they are struggling through this book. I do expect one of them to rate this kind of high because of the ending. I think she's going to really like the ending. But right now she's reading like 10 pages of it a day. Whereas before she's finished Fourth Wing in like a day. And then Iron Flame, she took a really long time. But once she got to chapter 35, she flew through it. So I just feel like, if people who are diehard fans and love this book are also struggling, I think that this book struggled. Like, I just think at this point, we were like, okay, you already gave us Iron Flame. You already gave us this roundabout way of getting to the point. I don't want it anymore. Like, I don't want to go on this journey anymore. I want you to tell me, like, what's going on. I want us to get to the point of it. And if there's not enough plot to get through 5 books, then there's not enough plot to get through 5 books. Make it 3, make it 4. I don't know. Figure it out. That's it, guys. That's all. If you still want to subscribe after this, please do that. I would really appreciate it. I'm crazy. Like, I am crazy, but that's not the sentence that I was trying to say. But I am so grateful that there's 300 of us now. Like, thank you so much for that. I really, really, like, it's such a blessing to have 300 people in this little atmosphere, this little corner of YouTube, talking about books, reviewing books. If you have a book that you want me to read and you think that I would actually really enjoy, like, go ahead and leave those comments down below. I love them. That is the whole channel. The whole channel is that you guys make me read books and I discuss them. And so, yeah, absolutely do that. If you want to join the Discord server, that link is down below. I think I have updated the link because the link is only good for so long and that's really annoying. I don't know how to change that. So if it's not any good, let me know. I will update it again. Thank you guys again for 300. Thank you so much again. I'm sure after this review, like 500 people are just like, absolutely not. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. Once again, I appreciate it. And I will see you in the next one.